Game 2 is upon us, and JD Gaming are one win away from advancing to the next round to take on EDG in just 2 days, but they still have to go through FPX, and now they've finally taken a head-to-head. They were 3-3 in games coming into this, 1-1 in matches between spring and summer. This is going to be the big decider, though. If JD win, they're in. If FPX end up dropping, they're out.
Yep, I mean, this is down the expected path that we had here. But FPX are putting up a fight, and I think that's what's notable here. FPX are in the game. We expected them to actually be taking it just because of how well they were playing the fights, initially putting down Clid. Clid didn't have a good game. That's what we should be looking towards in the next one, to see if Alex could actually come back here and respond.
And that's the big note about for me as well about FPX. I think picking a good teamfight composition for them is incredibly important, because a lot of times the early game could be a little bit rough if they have that teamfight to rely on and an edge coming out from Cool. They still have a very good shot at closing out the game.
And putting LWX, the shotgun of the LPL, onto something a bit safer, a bit further back on that Xayah. Maybe we've got to wonder about the draft for FPX, because as we said, stylistically, this is an uphill battle for them against JD Gaming, as we have so clearly seen in that Game 1.
That's why he wants to be in his element. He doesn't want to get booted out of the playoffs in 2 games without having to be picking up the Kai'Sa himself. He is a Kai'Sa player. He wants to come into the playoffs comfortable. Getting onto the Xayah, where he had 0 impact, is not his style.
Trying to hold waves and focus on wave clear when that wasn't the problem. It was around intelligent macro maneuvering and setting up for team fights from JD Gaming that ended up pulling FPX apart, and more importantly, not falling prey to any of FPX's chaos. JD just played it smart and defensive, and I think you mentioned it just a moment ago. If FPX want to throw a wrench in that, it's got to start in early game.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that problem was JD Gaming is basically showing that one of our weaker trait is still stronger than the strongest trait coming out from FPX.
Yeah.
The team fighting was what we expected would be FPX's trump card in this series of matchups, but JD Gaming, even with the bad early game, they were able to take the 5v5 anyway.
Yeah, just playing through those powers of strength, those windows of strength, as we talked about before this. But looking into this is FPX's last chance. Again, if they drop here, they're out of playoffs. They're out of Worlds contention. Where does it start? How do they reset this series?
I want to see Alex, and even though I like the Sejuani play, something that he was able to make use of a little bit, I want to see, maybe he stays on the Sejuani, maybe he goes back towards a more aggressive jungler, maybe he gets a hand on Kindred. So I want to have him at least have some early game pressure so he can take control of the top side of the map, because the issue is when they're getting setups around these major objectives, they're not a front-to-back team fight when they have Vladimir in the top lane. So maybe the easier answer is actually to pick up a better top lane than just a Vladimir, but what I think it's a lot more easier to play around is actually to give yourself a stronger jungler in the early portions of the game. Maybe have him Olaf, because I think Alex is playing well. I just want him to style. That's what I want him to do. I want to empower a player that was actually playing well in Game 1 in Game 2.
That's a really good point. Alex is known for those more aggressive and carry-oriented junglers, aside from the Sejuani. Kindred and Nocturne especially are his 2 big picks, and those 2 picks are able to snowball Cool very far ahead. So in this matchup, I think you are still looking for Cool to be the main carrier of the team, to hold down the early and mid game. I could see that being a viable solution going forward.
Yeah, duo you could tag team with. I think the Talia play during the regular season from him was actually individually impressive. Just the team at the time couldn't play around it. I think a lot of those struggles have actually gotten better. They can play around it a little bit more. That being said, the earlier issue I posed to you about LWX wanting the Kai'Sa pick, it's this large in priority. He wants to first pick it.
First pick blue side from FPX. That's how heavily focused it is. And look at how quickly JD respond. They counterpick away the Gragas and immediately follow it up with Loken's Tristana.
100% JD Gaming has definitely prepared for this. Like, even though Kai'Sa is a very high priority on 8.16 and across the world, in the LPL itself, Kai'Sa still presents you with a lot of questions. You have a lane that's going to be constantly pushed in. You have champions like Varus or a lot of kill supports like Liu Mao and Loken who can go in on you.
And with that being said, I mean, FPX have already checked a lot of boxes going into this game. Kindred pick, Alex is on it. He's got that early game box check. Kai'Sa for LWX, he's feeling comfortable as well. The only thing stopping them from 100% comfort is that darn JDG continuously banning the Alistar. So, I mean, Chris is going to be now going on towards the Braum, but at least they can actually strengthen around what is a strong skirmish-style bottom one with double AD carry.
And look at the confidence from JD coming into this. I mean, so often we talk about them playing more games than other teams in the LPL, 50 total, because they go to that game 3 so much more often during the regular season, that inconsistency later on in the match. Is there a chance that we could be seeing that here with a blind LeBlanc pick from Yagao into Cool, who has plenty of counters?
Yeah, Cool definitely plays 17 champions so far in the regular split, but we do have to narrow down the potential options he's looking for. He's looking for something range. He doesn't actually need to do that much damage, so I expect something more supportive that he can basically buff up his double AD carry composition already.
Oh, the Lee Sin getting banned here too. This is when you start getting into that territory here, because even though Gragas got picked up, I mean, we already saw Gragas get passed off to the support position last time around, and Lu Mao is a creative support. Last time going on towards the Zillion in the last regular season series. So it makes sense that they're respecting him. I just wonder what Klid's going to style with now. He has that extra buffer in a game, so it's better for him knowing that he's going up against the Kindred to try something new.
Oh, and now this is interesting. The Fiddlesticks making a return to the LPL. It appeared very early on in the season. Lu Mao was one of the bigger proprietors of it.
I do like this pick because it basically is a anti-Lamb's Respite pick. You put up your ultimate, I put up my ultimate, and guess what? I'm not going to die. I'm going to do a full channel of Crow Storm right in the midst of you. So a very strong counter to the compositional advantages of FPX.
It's actually just super annoying to play in the laning phases alone, not just because of the damage that the Fiddlesticks provides, but it's just a no button. It's a no button when Kaisa wants to jump into a fight. It's a no button when Braum sees a stun, a possible stun, throwing out the door. It's just a hard no.
Very big setup from JD, but we've got Kim-Gu back on a tank, and Cool looking to carry from that Aurelia.
And I do agree about the hard no from the Fiddlesticks, and that's why I do have a lot of questions coming in from the Aurelia. This composition from FPX, they don't actually want to go into the enemy comp. They want to stand together as a group and kind of use their range advantage to play around that. But with an Aurelia pick that is more of a diver, I feel like that sets up a bit of a controversial split between what the members want to do.
I love the fact that Zoom just locked in Darius. I know we just came out of a face-to-face with Zoom. Clement, you had that interview coming through. And what I love about Zoom, confidence. Just exudes machismo. So picking up the Darius fits still to his name. Going up against a heavy tank composition, he goes towards it. Braum cuts him down. Cho'Gath in lane cuts him down, and there's no Kindred that actually wants to be able to mess with him, so it's going to be on FPX to deal with him early on.
We've seen Keen with this Darius go up against a Cho'Gath matchup. It's extremely punishing, and if he can get into that Lamb's Respite, it's also Chop City for him. He's going to be constantly dunking on your members, so a great tech pick coming out from Zoom.
JD maneuvering the carry role for this game 2, this potential series finisher amongst 3 members now instead of just the one from Loken in that game 1 performance. Now they've got themselves the Tristana to carry as well, but also LeBlanc from Yagao, potentially looking to hard carry in the mid lane, Darius in the top lane trying to do the same darn thing. But it's up to FPX to stymie that. We said it's going to start in the early game and try to prevent JD from getting to that intelligent macro that we saw in game 1. And now they've got the composition to do it with a Kindred and plenty of strong lanes.
You gotta start strong, man. I know I was wrong the last time when I said, JDD go for a level 1 with the Braum and Olaf. This time around, I feel like it needs to happen. Braum, double AD carry, at the very least go for an early game, let's say level 2, fight around bottom lane. If you don't play around bot with a double AD carry comp, you're not making a good advantage, or at least taking use of it. So that's what I want to look towards. And for whatever reason, someone is now a pigeon. Is that cool, a pigeon?
That is the most literal rendition of FunPlus Phoenix cool I think I've ever seen.
So the word brother in Chinese sounds the same as pigeon. So they're basically calling him Big Brother and using a picture of Big Pigeon to symbolize that.
There we go. I mean, that's one way to paint a phoenix. He's not on fire, but it's still a bird.
He's going to have to light this series up if he wants to bring it back to a game 4 and reset for the chance at a game 5, because it's going to take FPX reverse sweeping as JD are 1 win away from advancing to the next stage of playoffs. as we load onto the Rift. Will it be JD eliminating FPX, or will we get the chance at a return? As you can already hear the pings going on behind us. And there we go, JD make it onto the Rift. Let's hear it from the fans, potentially one last time.
And you can see the flash. The flash already blown from LWX. Another JD Gaming level 1 pinch going into the bot side this time. And that's such a bad situation for FPX because this is one of those lanes where you can get constantly shoved in by the double range of Tristana and the Fiddlesticks. You have to prepare for the dive afterwards.
Yeah, so that's essentially what we missed out. The fact that it's very likely that Lumao started off with his own fear. We'll have to track it during the laning phase, but even though I was talking up the level 1 FPX could go for, they didn't go for anything. And it was actually LWX was in the bottom side of the map getting caught out.
And I want to note, in the early game, all 3 of JD Gaming's lanes should be able to push out. They are superior matchups, so the early game is going to rest on Alex's shoulder. Can his pocket pick of the Kindred really save some of the matchup losses that they have to endure?
Clid going forward buff to buff as he hopes to get onto the map as quick as he can. Means that he won't be able to approach the river until he finishes his buff off, looking for one final auto attack, and Alex is actually right underneath the scuttle, but is still going to focus on going towards his blue buff. Let's see if he takes a dancing arrows towards Gromp to try and set that up, and yeah, looks like he's going for a slow double buff start, and JD are even controlling the river away from Alex.
Just based off of just the first 2 minutes, JD have full map control. Because I would have expected, most of the time, teams would recognize the flash being taken bottom lane and look for a pretty heavy bottom lane focus rather than taking full control of the sides. So Gragas is taking control of the top side, Darius is pushing in, and the range advantage for Yagao is definitely securing them a top side advantage. I mean, Loken and Lumao are sitting sky high right now.
And look at the mental game that they're playing as well. Clid roaming top to place a defensive ward for Zoom, allowing him to push off of the knowledge that the Mark Scuttle was up top. Even though he didn't see the Kindred, the fact that he could be there and JD are collapsing on the bottom Scuttle is just putting even Alex into a pinch.
And this is the danger when you run a Kindred and then have 3 early losing games. You're never going to stack up. The big number you want in the laning phase is 4. You want to get your extra 75 range, but you have to start on the Scuttle. Oh, yeah. And with lane control going over to JD Gaming, it's actually going to be quite difficult for him to find any chance at it.
Already things are looking a little bit tough for FPX as JD Gaming, 1 win away from closing this series out, set up their early game with strong lanes and even follow up on that to make it a strong jungle. Now, there is still plenty of opportunity for outplay in this matchup, as you can already see Yagao is trying to focus Cool down before he knows that Cool will get that powerful level 6 and trade back.
He might need some help in from Alex just in case, because he's starting to slowly push in. It might just be alright because no mana is there for Yagao, but he's still looking. So, that being said, expect bases to come across throughout the mid lane. Bottom lane still has some time for LWX's flash to come up. That's why LWX still has to just take that out, slow it down a little bit more, because Clid can still look for a gank. There's no vision on him, so while Clid is basing, he doesn't know. And so this is just FPX, as you mentioned earlier on, just taking a slower pace of this game.
And it's really up to Alex to find those gaps throughout JD Gaming's vision and try to get the ganks off. I don't think this is a winnable game for FPX unless they find some early level ganks, because if this laning situation just continues, it's going to get from bad to worse, and they're going to be looking at a mid-game where they're 3 or 4K behind. They absolutely need some turbulence to happen to slow JD Gaming down.
And Darius up to level 5 now. Yagao getting close to his own level 5 as Zoom catches every single one of those minions for a 9 CS lead just over this passive laning phase against FPX. There's still a defensive ward from Gimgoon up top to keep himself safe. Now a control ward, and no zombie ward dropped from Alex. So still plenty of opportunities, but he's trying to get in. He's looking for those openings, but even already the ward has been cleared out.
Yeah, so this is unlucky because a lot of times it is a bit of a dice roll putting down that control ward to see if it's going to be cleared out that quickly. Some people just pass by around the bush rather than going straight through it. And so you get a lot of information just in that position alone, but the only information Alex got was that, yeah, Klid's top side. I already knew that one. So threw down the control ward, good idea, just not being taken much out of it.
And here comes the battle for the first mark. You can see JD Gaming already setting up for it. The back time for Yagao means that he has more effective gold coming straight to lane, and the bot lane is pushing as well. It does look like Alex is going to be denied yet another mark.
Yeah, he's hovering on that top half of the map, but Klid is still focusing on taking his red buff first and looking for a blast cone over the wall. He might be able to loop around Alex as these two junglers pass around each other. Now they've spotted it, but that was a quick body slam forcing him back as Zoom. Just trading with Gimgoon. One more hit could be a big true damage execution, but already Cool is the one who's actually turning onto the Scuttle Crab.
Yeah, he went bot side. I would say it's a bit of an unlucky timing because Alex was actually in a position to pressure. Cool now being turned on.
Oh, and a good sidestep gets him away. That's the Predator, and they're chasing him down. Cool collapsed on first blood. Yagao.
That was just a straight minute of bad coordination between Alex and Cool. Alex pressures top side, finds a Gragas who body slammed. You'd expect to, wait a minute. No body slam, let's go at it. But he was alone while Cool was heading bot side for the Scuttle Crab. So they were doing two different things at the same time.
And this has been a problem for Cool for years at this point. OMG, LGD, all of these teams and players that he's played with, he knows what's at stake. He knows he needs to get the Kindred ahead, so he collapses onto the mark to try and get Alex there. But it's a late reaction and a late response, and he's the one who ends up paying the price for it.
I mean, ultimately it depends on what's being said, but when he goes on towards the Scuttle Crab, Kindred had already been topside for a while there. He'd know and met Klid, so Klid knows where the Kindred is. So it was just good information coming in from JDG, which resulted in Yagao tracking you down. So I think it's just more of a, ownership for both of them, knowing what they're trying to do. Because if Kindred is going topside, at least be around the area for a little bit longer, and you can join alongside him to be able to get the Scuttle Crab later on.
And I think overall the setup from JD Gaming was just far superior. They had the vision to spot Cool as he came in.
Yeah, speaking of setup, there it is. Ooh, the cask will find Crisp. He continues walking forward into it. Big explosive shot as I believe Loken just autoed a minion with his ultimate. But still, it's Lamau who finds the kill.
There we go. Finds it. I mean, this was just in the videos that they've been looking through the replays of JD's dives. You find Klid on Gragas, and you can make it happen. LWX was pretty damn low. He had to expend his flash to get out of there, but as you mentioned, look at it, Crisp had no way out.
And honestly, this is why we only see teams like RNG have such a high priority on Kai'Sa, because a lot of these plays happen in the LPL over and over again. You give up your lane priority, and we're so focused about bot lane killing. We have this got down to a science. There's no level 6 onto Crisp, and just a display of dominance from Loken, where he ults a minion right in the face. And
oh, flash engage. Cool's looking for a solo kill. That's the ignite, and
That's
he
the right
will
one.
find it. Cool. How does he know which target? Look at that. Yagao is even stunned in his player cam.
That's what you do with Cool, man. 7th solo kill, last patch here, even adding it to this one. So you give Cool the pick that he wants, and even though he suffered to death earlier on, resilient, comes back into the lane and makes up for it.
Oh, Loken finds Alex,
Oh, no!
and he gets the smite off, allowing him to tick over to level 6, lands respite. The chase over the wall, the Void Seeker. Loken finds it, and he's out of there.
Gets a reset.
LWX does not escape, and a flash to get away from Crisp, flanking Lumao with the save as they escort Loken back out. Now, the Dragon was picked up by FPX, but Alex is down again.
Good lord, man. I just cannot believe it. I was saying, Alex once again on his own for the Dragon, so that one surprised me at the same time of Cool making the kill happen. So they're just trying to get a lot alone. And so it just results in what was going to be an outright advantage for FPX, but turns into a trade.
yeah, that was a very risky situation, and I agree with you. Even though Alex, in result base, he got the Infernal and that was worth it, there was a very good chance that he would just have been blasted out of the Dragon Pit and had nothing to show for. But once again, let's look at Cool's solo kill. Gets the ultimate, gets the Q, saves his flash from the first time, and also is patient enough to wait for Yagao to show himself, the true Yagao.
Yeah, and there are going to be frames of when you're returning back to your own distortion that made it so it's easy for Cool to just lay down the Vanguard's edge, was able to easily get it onto Yagao and look for a dive.
Now we still see control over the Scuttle Crab from JD Gaming. Yagao tries to get in there, but this time Cool and Alex are on the same page, and it's passed over. Cool, good guy,
He did it.
heads back into lane, and Alex finally gets that first mark. Though JD were doing everything they could to try to prevent it. Yagao was looking to collapse down with a distortion steal. The bottom lane from Loken and Lumao were pushing into LWX to potentially collapse if there was a skirmish. JD still know what their game plan is. It's just not quite working out this early on outside of those early kills.
I just love that it's a team-wide coordination, as you've mentioned, to put down Alex. Alex wanted to find the early game pressure that he's gone towards in the regular season. And sure, it's getting better, but he's 0-1-0. Only has one mark to his name. So he's definitely in a negative mindset, while Cool is riding high.
Yeah, and honestly, he was only able to get that scuttle because of the solo kill coming in from Cool. A lot of pressure being put on Yagao. He knows that he probably can't take this matchup straight up. But in the bottom lane and in the top side, the laners are still suffering quite heavily for FPX.
Yeah, 7 CS advantage for Zoom in the bottom lane. It's actually a CS advantage for LWX. But on that, Kaisa takes a little bit more time as he's going for what looks to be the Gwinsu's Rage Blade as well. And Cool with the emote and the taunt spin. Oh man, I mentioned OMG Cool. I didn't realize he would start imitating Icon with all of these taunts in the mid lane. His entire year's worth of progress is on the line, and he plays the numbers. Clid with a barrel, pins FPX to the bottom lane, but Alex walks forward, mounting Dread. They manage to get a knock-up onto Loken. He's got no flash. He's got no chance. Goes down. Lumao sprints it off with a Crow Storm, and FPX collapsing as 5. Here comes Cool as well, as Yagao forced to take a distortion over the wall.
I don't think it's going to work out here for Cool, just because the wave is taking some time before it looks to clash into it, so they should be okay, but he's sticking around.
What a massive win coming out from FPX. If you just look at the vision, they had full knowledge of what JD Gaming were going to do. They saw Clid come down. They were aware of Lumao's positioning right there, and it was just an information battle that they won on the spot to allow them to get it. I have a lot of questions about Clid. The way Clid started up the fight. I understand he was trying to get a knockback on a potential target, but that tells me that he didn't really expect Alex to be in the region, because you might want to save that ultimate for Lance or Spike.
Oh my god, I mean, that being said, at least he makes up for it just coming back into the kill.
You could see the wards placed by FPX, 4 wards, one of which was a control ward in that bottom lane. They were very clearly spotting out JD in advance, but they're not able to see this minion wave push mid, as that's just some good damage from JD as they rotate towards the mid lane and find some chip damage, but that means that's more time for Gimgun to try to catch up to CS, and Loken still breaks down first brick as LWX was rotated mid to try and defend that feigned 5-man push.
Ooh, but there's a good trade here. I just want to talk about the fact that there's that much gold being put into Loken's pockets early on, so he should be able to get the Storm Razors early on. I know that he stalled it out just a little bit to get the Berserker's Greaves, but you can tell what the priority is here. He's just trying to get pushed. Prioritize that shove so his team has time to work around his pressure. I wonder if he can get that Storm Razors early. There we go.
That's a quick recall for the Storm Razors. There is a push top. Crisp is spotted, and the Rift Herald was just picked up as Zoom flashes away from the Respect CC of FPX. And they will respond by taking down this top tier 1 and still holding on to the Rift Herald from Alex.
Overall, this is a great rotation coming out from FPX. You think about they trade the bot lane tower that had maybe 200 HP for a full tower in the top side and also a Herald in the Baron Pit as well. So it was a very good series of events there. However, on the follow-up, you do see Aurelia on the bot side push 1 or 2 with too many waves and does give up the mid for it.
Here's the thing. Being able to take mid lane tower is actually great for JDG, but they still need to find some base timings, I'd say specifically for Yagao, and he's not in the right time to do it. Infernal Dragon's coming up in 30 seconds, so this gives great timing for FPX to push mid and get vision around that.
They're spotted on top of a ward, and the recall was just canceled by Loken as he backs up and falls all the way over to the Wolf Camp to maintain vision. Even Zoom's going for a recall for one final buy, looking for that Black Cleaver. Because like you said, this Infernal Dragon's so important. FPX already have one on a very high damage composition. 2 or even 3 would be almost certainly lights out for JD.
And FPX do have an advantage here. They're going to fork JD Gaming the best way to do it. Force members to defend here, while also just taking it with the feast on the Infernal.
Take a look. I mean, Yagao has actually gone straight through his corrupting potions because he wants to stay on the map. I was expecting it to be try and defend the Infernal, but I think he just recognized he needs to be on the map a little bit longer to take the blue and maybe defend mid lane. So I thought he was doing it aggressively, but you can tell once again JDG's paying this one patiently.
And that pays off with FPX getting that second Infernal and picking up the middle tier 1 turret. Gimgoon still holding this wave bottom, as now it looks like we're exiting the laning phase and Vision around that Baron. Even though it hasn't spawned yet, you can see how much JD have practiced around this area. They're stepping up, they're placing wards, they're moving as a collective unit, and they might be setting a trap for Cool.
Uh-oh.
He's walking in here.
That's a control ward. Look at that, Cool. How does he know? This guy, he is such an experienced player.
Literally get off my lawn. He hasn't
Meanwhile,
mowed it in quite some time.
Alex
but
is
get outta here.
taking a camp bottom for another mark as the top tier 1 is being broken down by JD, and FPX are set to collapse onto the bottom tier 1, so it's still looking like a 3-for-3 even turret trade.
It's just always going to be faster on the side of JDG. I mean, Tristana is just a faster push. 2 people bottom lane. They're looking for
Storm
the
over
dive.
the wall, they're looking for it. The cast knocks him back in, tries to stall it out, dances forward, Loken goes in, and they manage to find that kill as they juggle aggro. Yagao flashes out and survives, sends the clone back in, but Loken still relatively high health. Could be looking to push this turret, but now that LWX has showed up, he backs away.
Surprised they didn't try and go in a little bit aggressively, knowing that Cho'Gath was still bottom lane for a little bit longer. But that's just an investment tool now. Getting the kill on Cool, and now chipping the top lane inner tower that low, they can come back for it in, let's say, 3 minutes when the Baron is up there. So if another poor team fight comes out of FPX, you can assure that they get a Baron buff and an inner tower.
And JD Gaming, they're really funneling a lot of this gold back onto the Tristana, looking for her to step up later into the game and be that big AD carry. I think the tools that JD Gaming have, there's so much counter to the way FPX wants to play, and one of these plays right here is the Fiddlesticks denial onto Cool. A diver like Cool, he doesn't have a target to really go to, gets feared, nothing he can really do. So good map. Switch up coming in from JD Gaming. They split the map top and bottom, and they get more out of their trade.
Party time. I mean, for Fiddlesticks to be this far ahead of the pace, usually if a Fiddlesticks is falling behind, you just get blasted. But being ahead means that you're just so damn tanky. He didn't die because easily was in the resolve tree, so able to get the fear across, lasting much longer, and then it was able to stopwatch.
I mean, over the course of this entire series, it seems as though JD have got FPX's number in able to get these outplays in team fights, and even their stylistic decision choices. Early game, shutting down Alex with 3 strong lanes and early jungle control. In mid game, shutting down the power of that Trinity Force Aurelia by camping and ganking and forcing her back. JD are very clearly prepared for this best of 5.
Because they force for numbers, and even though if you look at the top lane, there's 0-0-0 for both Gimgoon and Zoom, Zoom's actually been moving. He's been moving, helping out wards come across, even feigned mid lane for a look for a gank, but of course the chain got missed. So Zoom is in tune with the plays consistently, so they can rely on Zoom for these team fights, while Gimgoon's been playing out these side lanes pretty religiously.
And that's really the difference in team play styles. JD Gaming, they do like to
love it. Knows that
push
it's
over the
marked,
wall.
so he just holds it away from Alex and wastes the time. Double wards to keep Alex and Gimgoon busy.
I just wish that Riot game. There
Oh,
we go,
again!
do it again,
Round
baby.
two!
Yeah, you ain't taking it, buddy. That's my frog.
It does take the long way around, so finally Alex gets it, and finally, 19 minutes in, he gets his 4th mark for 75 attack range.
Oh, there we go, man. There we go. You know what, Riot Games? Here's a good idea for balancing Darius. Just make his E like 5-second cooldown. Just keep pulling it. Pull it to the...
That's actually, isn't that actually the cooldown? It feels
it's a
like it
bit
is in
longer,
team
but it's a
fights.
bit longer.
Yeah.
It starts out at 20-something.
Yeah.
But still, like you said, this is JD relying on Zoom to
Oh
create a
my
numbers
God.
advantage, but looking for a pick. They found themselves getting picked. Lumao gets stalled out as Cool disappears for a moment, gets himself that kill. On the far side, Zoom teleports to join in, but his team is split up. Loken getting aggroed by Gimgoon, and JD, they split up and they bite off way too much. 4 members go down, and look what's spawning. Baron out of the pit. FPX turn on to the worm.
Picture perfect right there. JD Gaming, so many times they do find themselves in this situation where they want to all in after a play has already gone in the opposite team's favor. FPX were ready and they were set up to collapse on that situation if JD Gaming overstepped their boundaries.
You know what? I like the intent of Clid's ultimate. Pushing people away. That's not the execution, though. So take a look at how it really happened. Because they get straight on towards Fiddlesticks. Fiddlesticks don't want any part of that. But it all started with him getting the cask blowing him straight towards the team. It was unfortunate that JDG couldn't get any way out of it because Gimgoon comes in with a massive flank.
And this is FPX finding an opening amidst the calm, cool plays of JD, forcing them into chaos and tearing it apart. You can see that damage. Zoom, with a whopping 0 damage, gets CC'd to death.
He was instantly stunned down by the Winter's Bite coming in from Braum in that situation, and that's kind of the reason why JD Gaming, they're very inconsistent with the leads they do have. It's sometimes that when they see a play is already happening, their first reaction, their gut reaction, is always to all in onto the fight.
I mean, you said it earlier, it's a team that's addicted to aggression, and it was them tempering that addiction, tempering that desire to fight in Game 1 that allowed them to take a controlled victory. But in Game 2, in the chaos, when they've already got 2 games up in the series, perhaps that gets to their head just a little bit, as now the top tier 2 is broken, and FPX are pushing their advantage.
Something to remember is that the early risks that Alex made is starting to pay off. The second Infernal Dragon now in their pockets while they're regaining control with what the teamfight composition. So what was handily JD's favor. This game was looking great for them. Issue is now, teamfight's looking phenomenal for FPX, and they're getting boosted by this amplified damage that the double Infernal gives them.
And Gauss steps up
Wow.
for some damage, but look at that. AP Kai'Sa, ladies and gentlemen. A Cathian Rain, though it scales with AD, it still does flat damage.
That's nice. Isn't that nice? Literally press Q, out-traded.
That was just a Q and auto coming in from LWX. No other sources of damage, and he's already at half health.
Now they're pushing up for the inhibitor. Yagao is fresh out of base, but a knock-up onto Clid, plus another Winter's Bite. No concussive blows are procced, but it's still 90 seconds and a wave pushing top.
This buys a lot of time for FPX, specifically for LWX now to get his next AP item. I wonder if it's going to be a Rabadon's Death Cap or a Banshee's Veil. 2 options that I think are really good for him. One to defend against what is Gragas's Engage. The other one's just to have raw damage. It was already looking bad for Yagao when he tried for any poke-on towards him. It's going to get even worse when he has that.
Alex now taking this third Cloud Dragon, sorry, third Elemental, which happens to be a Cloud, and the next one spawning is an Infernal. We could be seeing a triple FPX on a huge composition. Sorry, a triple Infernal on an FPX composition that thrives with it, but cool. He's on the prowl. Who's his target? Loken, Vanguard's Edge. He leaps away, gets deflected. The chase from Cool, and he gets pulled in a little bit too far as JD are able to defend 5 members.
Cool is trolling. So, I understood the initial point. Top side, trying to eye onto Yagao. His team had already based, already went back. He's alone. He's surrounded by 2 people. Ordinary mid laners would be like, I am out of here. I have a way out. But he tries to go in because, like, maybe I can just get the kill when there are 2 people there. You are so close to the JDG composition, to their own base. Of course, there are going to be more people, but now Zoom's under
Looking
pressure.
for Zoom, and they've found him. Alex finds himself a kill. 3-1-1 on the board with that Storm Razors and, of course, the Warriors. But now with Zoom gone, even though FPX lose the Baron, they can still try to control the map.
And that's just the damage from FPX. They have 4 carries that could actually just end the game with their own damages. So for JD Gaming, if they're in the siege situation and they're forced to defend in high ground, I don't think it's the best situation for them. They probably need to find a very good flank coming in from Rümal and try to catch someone out before it is forced into the front-to-back team fight.
The sustained damage you're mentioning is definitely true. The fact that LWX and Alex having his Storm Razor has had it for some time, but he's now relevant. He can walk up. He couldn't do that before. Gimgoon's now joining the fight, and he's a pretty beefy man. So we're getting to a point where LWX and Alex feel so safe to walk up, and the damage is what matters here. So it's going to be interesting to see what we get out of him.
Now JD find themselves down by about 4,500 gold. As we get to the 25-minute mark, their entire year's worth of play is on the line. If they lose this game, if they lose any of their next 3, they are eliminated. And JD Gaming have got scaling. They've got a Tristana, plus a Darius who's going to start building some big true damage. But luckily, FPX find themselves at an item advantage. Gargoyle, Stoneplate, Righteous Glory for Gimgoon. 2 items for LWX with that Nashers and Gwinsus for big AP proc. Sterix finished off for Cool and a stopwatch this time. So now FPX, they had an advantage in game 1, but couldn't take the fights. This time it's a lot bigger.
And it's true. It's a straight, true teamfight composition with a 5k gold lead at this point. I mean, they are feeling so comfortable around teamfights. I don't know how JDG can actually combat the teamfights themselves, so what I believe they should do is actually try and split them up in the sidelines. LeBlanc should not be with them. should be, let's say, opposite to where Cho'Gath is. So if he's in the bottom lane, send him at the top lane and try and at least get the side lanes working in your favor.
JD Gaming are so far behind in this composition. I honestly feel like there's just, you just have to find something to pick off right now, because if FPX just sit up on that Baron, there's no real chance for JD Gaming to really take that fight. They have to look for steals maybe. That would be their best case scenario. So I'm looking towards Lumal to probably make something happen before this next Baron comes up.
We're already seeing a big experience advantage from multiple members.
Get
Oh
over here.
no, LWX! He's still holding on to the Flash and Cleanse, Loken. That's the Vanguard's Edge. Leaps over the wall and lands the rocket jump just before, but another stun. Gimgoon's on the chase. Clid with the save, but he's not able to follow through. Cool, chases on. Clid goes golden. There goes another Void Seeker, but already a great stall. Still able to assassinate Alex, though. Yagao finding an opening.
That was a massive play right there, because with the Baron coming up, if FPX were at full members, that was just a straight Baron gone. So he does delay that from happening, but overall, FPX is still going to expand their gold lead.
Literally, I blinked. I didn't see it happen. Kindred didn't even throw out the ultimate because, of course, what do you expect when the LeBlanc just bursts you down that quickly? So you're right. FPX still have the pressure here. It's just nice to see that Yagao is getting a little bit of something here and there.
Now 27 minutes into the game, JD think they have a pick, but instead they trade 1-for-1 in these junglers, which is very important because Alex is level 14 and Clid is only level 12 off the back of that kill. So keeping that jungler away from the pit, even at the cost of your own, is very important for JD Gaming. Not to mention the Kai'Sa shred, the Aurelia damage, and it's a Kindred. So JD, they're really going to have to look out if they make any plays like that happen again.
Where is the party going to come from? Here's the big question for JD Gaming. They did delay the first Baron stay with the pick that we were talking about, but here, FPX have no reserves. They're just going to start for it. Lumal has to do something, but he's in base.
Recall just completed from Lumal and Zoom. They found Yagao on the side, and they're able to find the correct target. LWX destroys him as Cool secures the kill. Now Clid is here. He's got no flash, but he does have Body Slam. Spotted by 3 wards. They know that he's there. That's the cast. 2,400 health. Remember, the Devourer is ready. He's stunned over the wall. Steps up. Can he get the save? Lands Respite. He doesn't use the flash. Steps into it. The CC, but he goes down, and that's the Baron picked up. A late Devour by FPX as Lumao and Zoom running for their lives. The stun gets tagged. He's over the wall. A double kill for LWX. And now Zoom, his Sterix is popped, but he goes down. A triple kill off of a massive plasma proc.
Blown up. And Alex even had his ultimate, his Lamb's Respite, just on Baron, just on the edge. There was no way for Claire to burst it down at that state. So just so well played in these minor details for XPX to come out ahead.
Yeah, that was a big thing, stopping the damage, knowing that they could finish off Clid after the Lamb's Respite was falling off. So really intelligent play from FPX and great ballsy play from LWX.
5 versus 2. FPX are trying to get this game. They found Loken. LWX steps up. He uses the heal, but no flash, but they're trying to end this game, turning onto the Nexus turrets. They get 1, they get 2. Loken is firing like a madman. Lumao stalling as best he can, but Gimgoon is unstoppable in the front. Loken tries to clear it out, but the Nexus will finally go down. Last hit to Gimgoon, and FPX take their first win in this best of 5.
They got that one game, but it is still a long road ahead of them. They're still in that weighted gauntlet. JDG are going to go into the next game knowing that they just need to take 1, but the momentum is what's massive for them. That was a great comeback from FPX.
The most important thing for me was even after banning out 2 of LeBlanc's counter picks, Cool still found the edge in the matchup. He's showing up on the young guy. Yagao was I believe number 2 or number 3 on our all LPL mid laners, but he's falling down to Cool, someone who wasn't mentioned on that list.
And in a 29-minute victory, it's off the back of Cool and LWX that FPX are able to equalize at least a little bit more in this series. But like we said, it's still an uphill battle. Can they swing the momentum strong enough to break down JD Gaming? Because you take a look at the damage, Loken was doing a lot, 12,000. Yagao at 11,500, matching the damage of Cool. But the big differentiator has got to be Zoom in the top lane at 2,000 damage total on a Darius.
Yeah, he was in a side lane. I know a lot of people will eye out the damage of the top lane, but if it's a double melee, his job, I thought early on, was fulfilled. The issue is once it snowballs you in the first team fight, and you don't have any tank stats, so of course Black Cleaver, and he was trying to get the Sterix gauge, but these fights were coming in so fast, he was literally the squishiest Darius walking up to like a beasting Kaisa. There's actually no way for him to do it.
The biggest thing for me was that FPX actually out-macro JD Gaming during the mid-game. The laning phase went well for JD Gaming. They got they kept Kindred down, they got the first tower, but the subsequent rotations from FPX, they just traded way more objectives, and that gave them the map pressure to work with, that gave them the pick potential to work with, and that's where they really won.
It should be mentioned that a lot of this came off of equal trades between JD and FPX. JD would take a step and FPX would take a step, 1-for-1, until JD stepped too far and tried to collapse on Cool in his own jungle.
That's the thing, because a lot of the pressure would be from JDG, they were making the trades happen so they get pressure on the map so they'd get objectives. But when the objectives were contested by FPX, they didn't have the answers. And so immediately, Cool coming in, didn't expect it to happen. They were able to assassinate both the top laner and the support right at the get-go. There's no way for JD to come back after this team fight.
Yeah, easy handful of kills to snowball the Kaisa and the Aurelia setup for FPX. But is that FPX setting their vision up and saying, okay, we know they're going to step in, so let's set a bait and let's set a trap? Or is that FPX saying, oh, there's a team here, let's fight them?
So here's the thing. I don't think it's as simple as there's a team here that's fight them, because I think that the teleport was very intelligent coming out of Gimgoon. He was primed and ready for that. But even when the trades were coming through, I think JDG were much happier about the trades because they always had rolling with Tristana, pushing out these lanes faster. So even though Infernal Dragon goes over to FPX, you're like, okay, but the next one, you ain't going to get it. And these team fights are actually looking pretty poor for you if we have the setup. And they always had the setup. Issue is FPX still found that fight, and we still have to give them props for that.
Yeah, that was definitely a very good fight for them. But if I'm FPX about the question of the setup in terms of the composition, I would not be willing to go into that same comp again. Like 3 lanes getting countered and Kindred getting knocked back that early on, it's not really a solid foundation to work upon. So I do expect some changes to go forward there. But once again, I want to give props to Cool. Look at how many bans were thrown his way. They took away the Ryze and the Lulu, knowing that those were the traditional counters for the LeBlanc. He still got the solo kill, still found Kindred those windows to collect those marks, and that's what was really important about collecting those early interest rates that could then stock up.
And this is what we have to talk about, because as we said in the beginning of the day, Cool was supposed to come in and cool down the team, let them play more slow, more cerebral, but it's when he's super hot fire that the team looks their best. He's actually going to take our MVP after that Game 2 performance at 5-4-6. Despite being camped, he still puts out massive damage.
And even though he got camped, why don't we just add another stat in there? Solo kill, he adds one more to his name, right towards threatening and being able to nail the dive on towards Yagao. He had a personally exceptional performance. And so if we're talking about what FPX have to change going into the next game, of course, you mentioned maybe picking something different coming out of mid lane, or at least just compositionally, because top side and bottom lane were actually losing quite a lot, just getting pushed in repeatedly. I think Cool, while he played excellently, just working alongside Alex, that's what failed for them earlier on. So Alex actually lost out in quite a bit, but it was Cool, his outright pressure immediately to recoup that cost, that got them back in the game.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the bans coming out from them were incredibly intelligent as well. The Olaf and Lee Sin ban basically took away JD Gaming's core of the LeBlanc composition. We've seen them run LeBlanc and Lee Sin into RNG and absolutely blast that matchup. So very smart ban picking drafts and making sure that Cool at least would be on a 1v1 basis against Yagao.
Well, it's still match point for FPX. If they lose any more games, they are out. But we're going to go and take a quick break and get ready for that next game, just like our players are. Don't go anywhere. The LPL will be right back.
凤凰的精神就是不畏挑战，燃烧青春。